Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Katrin Becker. On this podcast, we like to say that while a smart person learns from their mistakes, a genius learns from others. And so in that vein, we love to bring guests that have learned immense things in their career so that you can learn too. You can either avoid the mistakes totally, or you can fail faster and get through it more quickly. So today we have a great guest. Her name is Diana Indries. She has really thought about what about communication? How can we have better communication with our spouse, with people that are close in our lives? She has created a game called Better Topics, and it's a very fun and engaging thing that you can play over and over again with your spouse. And they're just coming out with another game that we'll be talking about as well. So I'm very excited to hear what brought her to this point, what made her want to do this, and how it's helping others and what she's learned from it as a result. So Diana, welcome to the show.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you so much for having me today on the show. I'm very excited to be here.
It is very exciting as well. So I personally love board games. We have a whole cabinet full of all the games, and it's a great thing to pull out with the family. There's times where it's just my husband and I play games after the kids go to bed. I think it's such a important piece of the relationships. So I would love to know what spurred you to say, you know what? There's this thing missing in the market. There's a hole that needs to be filled, and I know exactly how to fill it.
Well, the game was actually born out of my own frustration with couple card games. Same as you and your husband, me and my husband, we love games as well a lot. And especially during winter months, because we don't go out that much.
Yeah. It gets dark so early.
Yes, it gets so dark and it's cold and you don't want to leave the house and it's cozy and you have to get dressed up and it's a whole thing if you want to go out.
It's a whole thing.
And and also because we work from home, it's not like, oh, anyway, I'm like put together and I can just leave the house. It's not like that most of the time. So I'm like I cannot really be bothered. So during those moments, also we have this weekly date night that we've set for ourselves since we were dating, even before we got married. And we are still keeping that, 5 years into the marriage, we're still keeping that weekly date night. And sometimes we're just like, frustrated what to do, because we try not to watch too many movies. Like, for example, I love movies and TV series. I could binge watch them for the rest of my life. I think I would be happy with that. But I am conscious that itself won't help our relationship in any way, because you see, with working from home, especially that both of us work from home, comes the other side of it where you don't really have a set time, like when you have like 9 to 5 and that's it, you clock out and then it's up to you whatever you do with the rest of your day. Also, because we work with people from so many different time zones, the both of us, we sometimes work till like 9 and 10 p.m. Like that's irregular in our house, where my husband would have calls like in the evening, or I would have something. And, before you know it, if you're not taking care of your relationship, you just start drifting apart. And then years in, you just look to each other and then you're like, who is this person? I feel I don't know them anymore. Basically, because you forgot to put time aside and connect. So in order to avoid all of that, we are very intentional about our date night. And many times we like to play games, and we have, again, all the board games, the Monopoly, the Ludo, the Scrabble, all the classics. And, at some point I thought, why not just get new games once in a while and start, working on the relationship and also play some fun games, because why not? I was researching a lot of games and I came across some so-called card games for couples, and I ordered a few. And my frustration with them was that, first of all, yes, there were many questions, but those questions weren't all helpful for the relationship. They weren't helping us have interesting conversations. They weren't helping us progress in any way in our relationship. They were very basic and sometimes childish questions like, what's your favorite color? Or what's your favorite ice cream? And I'm like, okay, a few months in already, or a few weeks into the relationship, you don't know how much I love chocolate. We have a big problem here. Like, these cards won't be able to help solve. So I'm like, no, these are not good. So out of like hundreds of questions that some of these games had, I don't know if we could use maybe 10. Now, even out of those 10, many of them were very close-ended questions where you could answer with a yes or no, or even worse, they were one-off questions where you would just ask them once, okay, now I have the answer to that question, and then okay, we can just move on with our life and just, you know, give the cards away, throw them away, or whatever, because they're useless. My second frustrations with these cards was the fact that they weren't actually games. They were just questions on a piece of paper that you could just ask your partner, and that's it. Or some of them were drinking games, which again, we don't really drink, so they weren't very relevant to us. Or they were mostly bedroom related games, which I don't mind, but that's not, you know, all the relationship what's about. You know, you have more things into your relationship, not just the bedroom. Yes, it can be quite important for some, but it's not all. Like, you know, you have so many other things. Yeah, you have so many other things to put in place, and cogs, you know, to oil and to help work in a relationship before you actually get to your bedroom and make it steamy as well. So, you know, out of these frustrations, I literally was so annoyed with them because, again, either they were one-off questions, or they wouldn't really make much sense for us, or they weren't even actual proper games that you would have fun playing. And this came at a time when I wanted to make a big change in my career, because my original background is in law. That's what I studied in university. And then after that, I went to the UK. I'm originally from Eastern Europe. And I worked in NHS, which is the National Health System in the UK, in corporate basically, for almost 8 years by this point, when I literally decided that I really want to do something else in my life. I didn't know what at that point. I just knew I had to pivot, and the shift has to be quite big because I was done with corporate. I got to the level where I set my mind to when I first entered corporate world, and I got there and I was very, very disappointed, because what I thought would be was very different from the actual life of what it was. So I was like, okay, this is not it. I want out. So all of these things combined, we started brainstorming with my husband, and then, you know, I got the games and I got frustrated with them because they were so poorly made. And the advertisement was so different from what the games were actually like, you know. So he said,
everyone can relate to that. Like, you see something and you think, oh, this will be so fun, and then you get it and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't realize exactly. This is what it would be.
Exactly. So my husband was like, what if we could create our own game? How would that look? And, you know, coming from a corporate mindset, I didn't even allow myself to have that creativity in the beginning. You know, I got scared. I was like, I don't know how would that work? How would we do it and everything? And then my husband was like, let's just start step by step and just imagine this would be a possibility. What would we even include in a game? How would, you know, what would be the main ground rules, questions, what we would do about it? So we started bouncing around ideas and we started working on the actual questions. It took us around, I think, 6 months to develop the questions, because a big emphasis that we wanted to put on the questions was to make them repeatable. So although the question is actually the same, the way it is formulated, you can actually ask the same question over and over again, and the answers will be different because whatever you go through every week changes, you know, whatever you're planning for next week.
Can you give an example?
Yes. So one of my favorite questions, and okay, so just, you know, to put like a slight disclaimer out there, there are some deeper questions and there are some lighter ones as well. I don't want to scare people off that, oh, okay, now you'll have to talk about your feelings and everything. You might have to in certain questions, but not all of them. So, you know, it's not all like deep feeling type of talk. But my favorite question is, when did you need me most last week and I wasn't there?
Ooh. You know?
And you can ask this question literally every week if you want. And it actually helps your relationship, you know? So alongside the fact that you can keep asking the same question and you will keep having different answers, you also help your relationship in a big way, you know, in having those important and necessary conversations in a fun way, in a playful way, because we've included a lot of game-like elements into it. It's a lot of back and forth in answering and asking the questions, but you also have what we call modifiers, where you can cancel a question if you don't want to answer it. You can reverse the question, which is my favorite one, as you know, especially when my husband thinks he's got me locked in, with like a difficult question. I'm like, actually, you have to answer it now.
Reverse.
Yes, exactly. And my personal favorite are the rewards that you get at the end. So with the main deck, we've included also a part that contains over 20 rewards, where the winner of the game gets to choose a reward from that pile, and the other person has to do it for them or together with them. So alongside encouraging actual meaningful and important conversations in a relationship, we're also encouraging people to do more stuff together, like the simple stuff, like do a spaghetti kiss next time in a restaurant, like be foolish together, it's fine. Like, make me breakfast in bed this Sunday, or I don't know, do me like a 20-minute massage,
I was
like
gonna say, is there a
anything that
massage in
is.
there? Because like I will sign up
Yes,
for that every time.
yes, exactly. So, you have also these rewards. So you get to play, you get to have these important conversations, but in a game-like setting where there isn't any pressure on any of the partners. Also, the questions are formulated in such a way that they're not judgmental in any way. They're not blameful in any way. So you feel safer in answering them. And you also get to do interesting and fun things with your partner. So basically, I combined everything that I felt other card games lacked, and we put them together, and then we found a way to make everything work together.
Well, and I'm so glad you explained it so well, because I feel anyone who has tried those other games might hear about your game and be like, ugh, it's just one of those, and lump it in there and say it's
Yeah.
not even worth trying. So hearing you describe it, I'm like, where do I buy? Like, I want to try this. It sounds great. Because it is something that you have to be intentional with, and to create that safe space. Like I've got two small children, and we had a situation a few weeks ago where there was, so the kids were going through some emotions and we were talking about it. And I looked to my husband and I was like, have you ever felt this way? To just help teach the kids that it was okay. And he was just so taken aback. Like it took him a minute to really think about it and engage. And after the children went to bed, he was like, why'd you ask me to talk about my feelings? And I was like, because they need to see it. They need to know.
Yeah.
And it's an important thing to realize, that it can be
The
okay and it can be
interesting
done
thing
safely.
about this game is that although we've created it having couples in mind and for couples, and there are some, let's say, spicier-ish questions, like bedroom related questions, some of our friends and some of our players as well, like people from US as well, played the game. They loved the questions so much. They took out those few questions that are related to couples specifically, because there are so many questions that you can actually do that and it won't ruin the game in any way. And they started playing the game with their kids. And they were so amazed of the results and how the kids started opening up. Also because the kids were never asked like that, to talk about their feelings or to share that much or to plan together that much or in that way. So they all loved it because it was very intentional, and they loved it. And they keep asking us to create one between parents and children and grandparents and grandkids, to help generations connect better. And we are definitely going to work on that as well. But it's just taking, each game takes quite a while to be produced and put out there. But it's amazing to see how, our main intent were couples and help them communicate. And then parents and children as well get to have this amazing benefit of the game, play together, and also discuss things. Because my main idea and I don't know if it's purpose or what do you want to call it, I really want to help children live better lives and be more educated about their feelings, about decisions, about anything that's related to their lives. And I realized that in order to do that, I don't need to approach children as much, but their parents, because that's where it all starts.
Absolutely.
Our education starts from home, And from my own experience, I was in my mid-20s towards late 20s when I actually started very seriously to educate myself about relationships. What relationships mean? What are they? What is a good partner? Are there even such things as great relationships that last for 30 years and people are still happy after 30 years or 50 years or I don't know how many years? Because you see, the experience from home was one, and the experience I've seen and the things I've witnessed in my friends' relationships or people around me or other members of the family were so different. And most of them, I was like, I don't want that. You know, most of them were not filled with happiness. Most of them was not that um, happiness ever after type of ending that you see in movies. And I was like, either movies are a complete BS and that's just not possible. It's just like a endless fairy tale that we are shown every time in TV and we just dream about. And then we have to accept this reality. And I was like, why can we just have that in real life as well? You know, and that started this quest inside me, like, okay, I need to learn more about this, because I had this mindset where, you know, in your career, normally, if you don't know how to do something, you'll take a course on it, you'll read a few books, you'll watch a podcast maybe or listen to it, you'll watch a few videos, whatever, you'll educate yourself on it, and then you start doing it, you practice it, and then, you know, it becomes a skill you're good at, and then you use it, and your life is so much better because you know how to do that thing. And I always thought, why are we not doing the same about relationships? Because, you know, in my going up the corporate ladder in my previous job, when I was having these management trainings I was going through, many times we were taught a lot about how to communicate with a team, how to bring out the best in them, how to, you know, see, recognize the different personality types, how to communicate with all of them in a way that they are happy to do whatever they need to do. And every time along the way, I was like, better partner choices, you name it, like so many problems that people have today would be just erased if they would know what to do. So that's what it all started, you know. Years went by as I started learning more and more. And then again, I reached this frustration point with the games as well. And then Better Topics came about to be. And because we are encouraging people to talk about better topics rather than all the problems that happen out in the world. I'm not saying, you know, to be oblivious to what's happening. I'm just saying not to be consumed by them and to focus more on what's actually important, you know, our relationships. Because even if we love our career so much, still our relationships impact our lives so much, you know,
Big time.
that it is worth investing in them, either by, you know, putting aside a few hours a week or even 1 hour maybe and playing a game like this, so you can reconnect with your partner and form that connection. Because, you know, again, in corporate, you tend to have these team building sessions or team building days. And even in private companies, you see, you know, team building weekends, weeks, even, whatever. Why? Because people need to spend time together to be able to connect with each other, to gel, to understand each other, to get to know each other, and all of this, to understand how they work, why they have certain beliefs and all of that. And then that makes work overall easier with them. The same is true in a relationship. It's just we forget, because also I believe this comes from maybe a general tiredness from work, where, you know, you put in so much effort at work and so much energy into getting along and communicating with people there. And then maybe when you get home, you're tired to do the same at home with your spouse, and you just want to relax and just chill, do nothing maybe. But with the help of a game like Better Topics, you can actually do that without having the stress of, okay, how do I approach this? You know, how do I talk about, I don't know, my husband leaving his socks around the house? How do I talk about, I want him to fix this now, not in 6 months, you know?
I think just those questions are very relatable. That is for sure.
Yes.
But, you know, you said you were in law and you were in the healthcare system, and there's a lot of psychology in what you've been describing and how to formulate these questions, how to ask them so that they're repeatable and being in a safe space. I mean, I know you mentioned that you were curious and started studying it, but did you ever have a moment as you were creating Better Topics where imposter syndrome popped up and you thought, don't know what I'm doing. Like, there are people who have PhDs that do this and have created these games that I don't think are great. Like, who am I to come up with this?
That is a great question. Actually, I had that. I had that because I thought maybe I had to go back to school and study psychology for a few years and then even just to show people that I know what I'm talking about. But then I had this very important conversation that literally shifted everything in my brain. I was talking with various psychologists from the US and couple therapists as well. And they started using the game with their clients because they said, obviously it won't solve everything in a relationship, but it's a really good starter, especially if one of the partners is not so used to opening up, easily. And they don't want to talk about their feelings. They don't want to lay on a couch and just talk about how they felt because not everyone can open up easily. And I get that. And they said, as a starting point is really good because it gets that conversation going. Once they start having a few conversations like this, it gets easier and easier for them to open up. And one of them said something that literally clicked for me she was like, I've been doing this for 25 years and I never thought about a game like this, but I think it's such a great idea. And then it clicked. I was like, that is why I could do it, because I wasn't hung up in all of those teachings that people had, all of those boxes that people had. I'm not saying that this person I talked to, she's not brilliant. She is. She's amazing. And we had, amazing conversations. But because she's been in the industry for so long, she forgot to be super creative about it or think, I wouldn't really want to say like with the times, but maybe that too, because in this day and age, we want everything to be more fun than it used to be. For example, when I wanted to leave my corporate job and I was talking with my mom and I was like, I'm not happy. I'm literally waking up on Monday morning and I want to break things just to release anger and frustration that I have to go to work again and spend so many hours there and come back home. And my mom was baffled, when I told her this. She's like, what do you mean your job is not supposed to make you happy? Like, are you crazy? You have it was a really good job. It was very secure. It was well paid. I had my own house already, everything was fine. And she's like, are you crazy? She's like, nobody's expecting, their job to make them happy. And then I was like, what do you mean? Like, am I supposed to spend all this time for each day in a place where I'm not happy? And I was like, it's a job. Like, it's not meant to make you happy. And when I realized the difference in generational pattern and thought as well and perception, I was like, oh my God, I need to get out now before I become like that, because
there's still time. You can do
yes,
it.
yes, that actually urgent things. And I was like, no, now is the actual time to actually get out before I get too complacent in it. Like, no, I need to get out. And I realized, like, yes, in my parents' generation, it wasn't about having fun at work. It was a lot about survival.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, most of our survival is already covered, Also, most of us, I think, we got to a point where you realize you don't need a super massive mansion to be happy and to survive. You need a house, couple of rooms, bills paid, food, you're good. Now what? Now comes, I want to feel good. I want to enjoy life. I want to do more than just survive. Because again, our work is not as physical as it used to be anymore, and is not as hard anymore as it used to be for many of us. I'm not saying for everyone, but for many of us, if you look back, to previous generations. So, when I talk to people like that, and like that psychologist I talked to, and when she said she never thought about it, I just thought that, yes, because she was in a different generation mentality. Our generation now, we want to have more fun. And if we can learn through fun, even more amazing, because even as kids, if you think about it, kids learn a lot by playing. Most of the things I think they learn is by playing.
Absolutely.
But we forget that as adults, we go through the school system where they're like, okay, you have to learn this, you have to read this book, you have to do this paper, you have to. And it's all like a certain type of work, and it becomes serious. Whereas when you go to trainings, even as an adult, and even now, I fondly remember all the trainings I went through when I was doing my management training in NHS. And I remember the ones that involve play, any type of play, And I was so amazed to see that they were just making asking us to do, for example, build something with like pastas, like pasta straws.
Yeah.
Like they were asking like, because they split us like in teams, and
like
then
build
they
a
were asking,
bridge
like,
or something, right?
exactly, like build something, because actually behind it, they wanted to see how we communicate as a group, as a team leader, as this, how do we take charge? Do we not? What's happening? Do we involve others? And, all of these things. And when they explained it to us, I was like, but we were just building something. Like what? And all of this was combined and, well, culminated with better topics where there is a lot of thought put into it. And this game can help you in so many ways you don't even realize, even just by asking the questions. And the versatility of the game, because you can either play it as it's meant to be played, or you can even just take it with you on a long drive, for example, and just ask questions and bounce them back and forth,
Yeah.
So many ways you can use it.
Well, I think, the thing I really love about you mentioning these questions, and something that's very top of mind to a lot of people, is talking about like Chat GPT. And, the conversation really comes back to, it's all about the question you ask. And I think that it's so important to have the right question, because it really, yes, the answer that someone will give is important, but not nearly as important as having the right question and being able to ask that question correctly.
Exactly. And even maybe questions that you never thought about, For example, we had this couple that they were our friends. And when we first got out the game, we asked them to play it and to give us feedback, like any feedback, even if just the cards, how they feel, anything. Just play the game once or twice and tell us about it. And they were like, listen, we've been married for like 30 plus years. We're fine with each other. We communicate, we talk, we're amazing. I'm like, okay, good to know. Can you just play the game and give me some feedback nevertheless? Because first of all, you have no idea what I'm talking about. And second, I actually need real feedback, because I've created the game together with my husband from scratch, literally from scratch. We see it in one way, we understand it in a certain way, but others who haven't, and they have their first connection with the game and their first contact, they might see some issues that we haven't, and we've missed in some way. So we asked this couple to play it nevertheless, and their feedback was so funny, because they came back like a week later and they're like, listen, we've been married for 30 plus years. We are talking, and we know each other since we're like teens, married, been together forever, all good. But this game actually raised some discussions, some very, very interesting points of view. They're like, I've never thought of asking my wife, when did you need me most last week? It's like, it never even crossed my mind, because normally she would tell me, but sometimes she doesn't. She just doesn't want to deal with that. She just doesn't want to go into that discussion that might turn into confrontation. But it's like this game and the questions, they actually, helped us look at things from a different perspective that we never thought of before. And he just felt, that the connection was stronger even after this, So even if you think, oh, my relationship is amazing, I don't need this, give it a try. You might be surprised.
And even for like dating, I think it's important to have those kind of questions then, even before you get married. My husband and I are Catholic, and our church required, in order to get married in the Catholic Church, that we take like essentially a compatibility quiz. And so we go into our separate rooms, we answer the same questions. And then whenever there was differing questions, there was a moderator, essentially, who comes in and says, okay, on this question, Katrin, you answered this way. And, Eric, you answered this way. Like, let's talk about it and have that discussion. And it's really, really helpful. So I can see this being great for dating. I can see it being great for couples that have been married a long time, but I can also see some of these questions being really able to be brought into the workplace. Like even as a manager asking your team, when did you need me last week? And I wasn't there.
Yeah. The sister of this question is, when did you need space last week? And I didn't give it to you. Because someone can be micromanaging you, even at work or at home,
Sure.
So
again, and everyone's different. Everyone's different in what they need and when they need it. So it's a constantly changing and evolving situation.
And what I realized is that not everyone, although, you know, maybe they've been together for years, not everyone is comfortable enough telling their partner, like, listen, I need help for a day not to see your face. Like, I just want to be alone, maybe in bed, maybe binge watch something, maybe go out by myself and just have a walk, maybe just drive for half a day. I don't know, whatever it is, you know, I want to be alone. And sometimes I have that, you know, myself. And my husband was quite, you know, surprised by that in the beginning of our relationships. And I told him, like, I'm normally a people person. I'm good people. I love to be around people. I love to socialize and everything. But sometimes I just have this, you know, when my cup seems too full sometimes, and I need time for myself just to like decompress in a way, you know?
Yeah.
So I told them, like, you just have to understand and accept the fact that sometimes I don't want to see anyone and I don't want to do anything. So I would have like this helpful day where I would just be in the bedroom, in the bed, and then he would just like come in once in a while, like, are you still breathing? Is everything okay?
Give a thumbs up. You're like, yep, I'm alive.
Yeah,
I'm good.
still breathing, all good. It's like,
Do
okay.
you have or had experience with those Brita filters? It's a brand.
Yes, I have those. Yes.
I think of like when you're filling up the water reservoir and you
Yes.
get to that point where you're filling up faster than the filter can go.
Yeah.
Because I
And it
feel
can
the same way.
overflow.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
overflows, and it's like, I just need a minute for my filter to catch up to being what's pouring in.
Yes. That's actually a really good example. I love that. Yes, exactly like that.
Because
So,
I'm the same way. So when you were describing it, I was like, I know exactly what you're saying.
yes, yes. And so we have this routine where once in a while I'll just be like, or maybe I just, you know, I'm telling him in the morning, okay, today I want to go and see my parents by myself. And, you know, I know you have work till late, so I'm just gonna go. And I'm taking the car and I'm leaving. Because for me, even that 1 hour drive there and 1 hour drive back, it's so good and so therapeutic, and I just feel amazing, you know. And by the time I get there, I'm good, and I'm spending time with my parents, and I get to decompress with my mom, because, you know, women, we talk differently than men. So my husband doesn't get like annoyed that we're talking about the same thing again and again and again. And I'm like, he's not here, we can just talk about anything. And because then, you know, if we don't include him, he feels excluded of the conversation. If we include them, he's like, yes, but, you know, this is not a topic I'm very interested in. And I'm like, okay, just go do something then.
You're right, exactly.
So sometimes, you know, I just have these moments where I'm like, I'm just gonna disappear, you know, for like an afternoon, and see you in the evening or maybe even tomorrow morning, especially if I go to my parents' house. So,
And
but
that's a
this
really
comes
important thing to talk about in terms of self-care, because a
exactly,
lot of times people see self-care as being something that you have to spend money on, you know, that
yeah,
it's expensive to go get the massage or to get the manicure and the pedicure or to whatever, go shopping. But I think it's a really important thing that self-care can sometimes be just being with yourself, just going for a
yes,
drive, you know,
yes,
listening to
exactly.
music that you love.
Exactly. But again, coming back to better topics, I am comfortable in telling this to my husband. Maybe also because of my personality type, that might be. Maybe also because I grew up with a brother and I understand that you have to tell men exactly what you mean. They don't really understand beating about the bush, you know, they don't really catch on that. Even so, sometimes my husband is like, is this like serious, or is there an underlying thing I should be aware of? But again, this comes after years of working on ourselves, working on communication. You know, my husband has few businesses, so obviously he had to be really good at communication. And we bring those skills into our relationship. And I understand that not many people have that. Not many people are comfortable in just going to their partner and saying, listen, I just want to clock out for like half a day, see in a few hours after I'm okay and I'm back to my normal self. Or as someone said recently, you know, right now I'm not fit for human consumption. I need to go away and come back.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I mean,
So yeah,
I love this because, you know, I think about like date night just being going to see a movie. And it's like, well, you don't interact with each other. Like,
exactly,
I know you can talk
exactly.
about the movie like afterwards, but the majority of the time you're spending together, you're not interacting. So
Yes,
it's a great
yes,
way for people to mix it up and to just try it and just see what it's like. And I would imagine maybe even setting with the intention like, hey, we're going to try this for a couple of weeks,
Yes,
that you
exactly.
will see the real benefit. But this has been amazing, Diana. I'm so glad that you had this idea and that you had the moxie to stick with it and to keep going and to see it through, even though there's, the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur and starting something new and learning, like,
Oh my God.
how do you even manufacture something like this? Like, who do we contact? And that feels like that could be a whole nother
Yes.
episode.
Yeah, definitely. What I just want to say about that is that I understand why not everyone is an entrepreneur. Because in the beginning, I was like, why isn't everyone doing something like this? And then 3 years in, I'm like, yeah, this is not for everyone. Like, I many times missed my corporate days where you can just walk in, do the work, leave, and then that's it, you're done. Like, till the next day, nobody's bothering you. When you're an entrepreneur, your clock never stops. And it's crazy because you cannot get your mind off it. And then sometimes at night you're like up and you're like, oh my God, how can I improve this? I need to talk to this person, that person, especially when you start off and you have to do everything on all sides. It's not easy. But what I can say is that 3 years in, finally, I start seeing amazing results and growing. So is it worth it? I don't know. Ask me in another few years.
Jury's still out on that one. So Diana,
Yes.
how can someone purchase Better Topics?
So you can find Better Topics on our website, which is bettertopics.com, or you can also find it on Amazon for US, UK, Australia, and Canada.
That is amazing. I will make sure that I also have the links for that in the show notes. But thank you so much for being here. I know I'm going to go get my copy. I'm really excited to try it. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'll make sure I report back to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.
And thank you to the listeners for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast so you can continue to be notified of amazing guests like Diana. And if there's something else that you're curious about, a person that you want to learn more about, please reach out and I will see if I can get them on as a guest. Until next time, everyone, have a great day.